everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the XD Challenge. Today we're talking about inclusive design. Hello everyone in the chat. Hey Laura and Unicorn and Sam, good to see you guys. Let's take a look at my screen, what we're playing with today. Here is the challenge prompt to consider inclusive copy and imagery when creating a profile screen for a dating site. I also wanted to talk about what is inclusive design. I really like this definition from an Inclusive Design Research Center that says, design that considers the full range of human diversity with respect to ability, language, culture, gender, age, and other forms of human difference. I've also included some inclusive best practices that I'm going to refer to as we go and start designing. I also wanted to talk a little bit more about why inclusivity means something to me. Now, when I was around 15, my dad came out as gay and he was in his mid-40s. And I asked him, why did it take so long for you to tell us? And he told me that he was just really scared. Growing up, it was just not okay to be who he was. It really weighed down on him. And I think about that now when I'm designing, and I think about how I have this gift, how designers have a gift to allow people to feel more included. We have this ability, and we get to create products and designs and experiences that allow people to feel more comfortable to be who they are. We could also have the opposite effect as well. So when I'm creating this design profile, I want, people like my dad to feel like they can love who they love, they can be who they are, and they feel completely accepted and comfortable. So let's get designing. I'm going to show you this design I've created. Here we have this kind of carousel of different types of love that we're seeing with different ethnicities. We have diversity in the imagery. Now I'm going to create an account. We have, what's your name? Where do you live? What's your date of birth? And then we have what is your gender identity? So this is where we want to be more sensitive and thoughtful when we ask these types of personal questions. So we want to kind of lean more on the side of being very thoughtful and careful and doing as much research as we can on these topics. So in this example, we can put a couple of, you can have more than one gender identity here. You can go to next, and what genders do you prefer to date? So you can select as many as you like here as well. So this is the example that we have here. I also have a UI kit that I've included that we're going to use. If you weren't here for my talk yesterday, I recommend checking out how you can utilize UI kits to streamline your workflow. So that's why I included this for you today, so that you could take this if you so choose, or you can find another UI kit. I'm going to put the UI kit stream from yesterday as a resource for you guys as well, so that you can check that out. All right, so first thing that I did, and I just talked about this a minute ago, was to do a little bit of research. So I was studying forms and understanding more around how we can be sensitive to people's gender identity. And I looked at Facebook as an example because some of the articles that I read mentioned Facebook as a good example of a company that really considers all different types of gender identities. Now, something that I did not like when I went to the gender identity section in Facebook is it says female or male or custom. Now, what I didn't like about that, maybe you guys can have your own thoughts when you see this, is that it feels like, oh, there's two, male and female, which, are more common, and then there's custom, which doesn't feel so good for me if I, feel like I don't identify with those two, and those are always what I see and feel. So it's like, oh, I have to customize who I am. So instead, what I decided to do here was to not have just male and female as the top two options, and then for them to customize is just to allow people to already start to put in their identity, that the gender identity that they connect to. So this is another example from Facebook that I did like. When you get to the gender area, you're allowed to just type and it's going to give you some auto suggestions. So if you type A, it's going to give you everything that's within A, etc. So that's what I've included there. So I wanted to give you an example of something out there that you can look at as a reference point. So I'm going to start with this screen here because we've already done a little research around it, and I want to design this screen. So I am going to go into my artboards, A on my keyboard for artboard, and I am selecting this iPhone Pro, and I want to create this screen here. I've decided when I went to, this is my little UI kit. I'm going to bring my little UI kit over here. Hey. And you can see that I've already found like a good number of form types. So again, like, why design all of this from scratch if there's already form fields out there that you can just alter yourself? So here I am going to grab, I'm going to grab this layer and paste it here. Cool. We already got a form on our page. And I actually liked the font that they're using in this UI kit, which is Avenir. It's quite a friendly font, and I've used it for a ton of my projects. So I'm just going to grab that guy, paste it here, and I'm going to select this text. You don't want to watch me type because it would take a long time. I'm not a good typer. I'm like really slow when it comes to that. So I am just putting in, you'll see here actually, it is Avenir and it's a 32 size, and I am making it quite large so it's really easy for people to read. We don't have that much copy on the screen. It's really clean so that people can focus on the questions. So that's why I've broken it down step by step for each question. The other thing that I put, so here in the best practices, inclusivity best practices, number one rule I put in here is use simple language. Use language from an 8th grade reading level or under. And there are some tools out there where you can check your language, such as Hemingway app. So I'm going to show that to you. We want to think about 8th grade language for when we're creating text. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to open up Hemingway app. From here, just going to get rid of all this text, paste it, and over on the right hand side, oh, it's a grade 0. Okay. I just pasted it and it'll give you the grade level here. As to, you know, if you're at an 8th grade level or above. This is especially important that we want to think about simplicity in our language. We want to think about inclusivity for different types of people. So my mom, her English is her second language. So her reading level is actually at a 6th grader level. So I want to be able to have people like my mom be able to understand what is being said here. Now, this is an interesting thing because as I was writing this, I realized that this is a question that I've actually user tested with a group of people who were between 50 and 80 years old and who were dealing with homelessness. And I asked this question, what is your gender identity? And people did not understand that question. They really didn't understand. It's a age range where people were like, oh, what does that mean? You know, am I male or female? That's what they're used to. So it was really interesting to try to be more open and inclusive in the language, but also make sense to this community. Now, for the example of this project, it's a dating site that's for people who are in their 20s to 30s. So I'm not thinking about 60 and above for this, but if we were, this language, what is your gender identity, actually may not be inclusive for that community. So we do need to think about that sometimes, right? Also, hello people in the chat. You are welcome to ask me questions as we go along for the rest of today's session. Feel free to ask away. If you are on YouTube, come join us. Come welcome to Behance, where you can actually ask your questions live and make friends here. Okay, so here I have the gender identity. I have an open field. And the other thing I added in here was this sentence or this button. I prefer to self-describe. So instead of having to select things, someone can also describe their gender identity. Maybe we don't know how they identify. We can have all the things that we've researched and put them into our system, but we might not know them all, and it could be changing and progressing. So this is where my inclusive best practice number 2 comes into play. Make sure that you don't limit a user's choice for when adding gender identity in forms. Even make sure there's a place for users to put in a custom answer. Okay, so that's why I have that option there. And what I didn't design, which we can do today, is what that looks like when you click that guy. So you don't have to watch me write this text down. Here we have this button. And I actually also am going to use this as my button style. So I'm going to bring it down here, dragging that over, and I'm changing my text here to next. And then because it's like a large button text and maybe I want it to be quite noticeable, I might make that a little bit larger. And I might even just make the button larger. Nice big button for clicking on. There's a song that I did a rap to. It's I like big buttons and I cannot lie. And I feel like people like big buttons. Users like big buttons. Give me a what if you do too. If you see like a nice button on the screen, you're like, ooh, I just want to press it. So I added that nice large button, nice large text. Something about having large text, large buttons, large fields makes you feel like it's more open, like you really want to interact with it. And the other thing that I've added here was this kind of loading. Let me show you how that's working here, because here you see that in the first name, we see this little, it's loaded up to this point. And then as we move forward, oh, that's going the wrong way. What happened? That's okay. As we're going along, it's progressing. So this is a very important thing we want to think about. People's attention spans are different. If we want to be inclusive too of different attention spans, we want to let them know how long they've been doing this and how much longer there is to go. So people like to see that sort of progression indication. That's why I've added this guy. It's super simple to create too. It's just a little rectangle. I'm going to get rid of the border. I'm going to add this blue color. And then I'm just going to add another one of these. It's going to go behind. And this time, this one is going to have a lower appearance, right? So you're going to have something like that. Boom, done. And we've helped our users. Feels good. So I want to actually design with you this screen, what happens when you select I prefer to self-describe. I don't want it to be this same type of field, because this type of field is for auto suggest. So that's this screen. Auto suggest is when you're typing something and you see some suggestions based on what you've just put in the form. And a good example of this is Google Maps. If you ever try to type an address, it just gives you all these options. It's so much easier to just select it versus having to write the whole thing or type the whole thing down, right? So that's why auto suggest is a really nice type of form. But if we want to have an open-ended form, something that might be better is to allow our users to have a little bit of a larger text here, or text form here. So I'm going to make that a little bit larger. People can type what they'd like. And in this screen, instead of saying select as many as you need, they don't need to select as many. They're going to be typing. So they're going to see that type box. But what if someone forgets, or maybe someone accidentally clicked I prefer to self-describe and they want to come back to this screen to select instead? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this to say I prefer to select gender identity. So this would allow them to kind of go back to that previous question if they so choose, right? So we need to think about that too, right? If someone accidentally selected something they didn't mean to, how do we allow them to go back to a previous screen? Speaking of, I did not create a little back button to allow people to go back. So that is something that I'm going to also include as well. So in my search, I'm going to go, using my plugins, I am going to search for icons, and I'm just going to search for arrow, and I'm going to place a little arrow in. Oh, so cute. And I'm going to change that color to blue. And then I'm going to copy that. And because I want it on every page, I'm just going to select all the pages. All of the screens that I want to have that arrow in. And once I've selected all of those artboards, all I need to do is paste. What happens? Oh no, let's do it again. Copy, selecting all my artboards, paste. And now it's pasted in the exact same place in every single artboard. So if you guys ever are like, oh no, I forgot to add one thing for all my artboards and now I have to go each of them individually, you don't. You can just select them all in one paste and they're all there. Feels good, so quick. All right, so we have our gender identity question. We have the ability for them to select a form or a more open field for them to describe their gender identity as well. And what I want to play around with at this point, we can come back to this, but I want to talk a little bit more about the imagery I'm using here and how to create something like this beginning little carousel scroll. So it's like this, and it scoots over and sees someone else. Oh, another couple, how lovely. So I am going to create another artboard. And this time I'm going to look in my plugins for another plugin called Free Stock Search. And I'm going to search for a couple. Now, this is where my final best practice that I added here, which is use diverse imagery in photos and content illustrations. This is kind of challenging sometimes because when you look up stock imagery, there's not as much inclusive type of imagery as there is some of the more common types, which are certain types of ethnicities that we commonly see in media and stock that are still more prevalent. So in order for us to find more diversity, we have to search a little bit more. And sometimes we can find, if you do a little research online, you can find certain sites that are more dedicated to inclusivity. The thing that's really exciting about this Free Stock Search plugin is when I was searching, I was like, oh, there are different ethnicities, different age groups for the couples. There's, of course, these little cheesy landscape type of images. But we also start to see a lot of fingers and handing holding. Oh, we even see a lion couple. Wasn't expecting that. We're inclusive of animals as well, I guess. We have diversity here. We have some diversity here as well. Different types of couples. So that's really nice that we actually get to see this. How great that this is. So this is, something that this wouldn't happen a couple years ago, 5-7 years ago, we wouldn't see that. It's quite beautiful. So I am just putting in a rectangle image. And once I do that, I am going to just select this image. And I'm just going to double click If you notice, double click so that I can actually move and I can change the background or change the image to where I want it to be. Cool. But if I add some text and buttons on top, it's gonna be kind of unreadable. So I'm gonna select the artboard and I'm gonna change that background appearance to black. Nothing's happened, nothing's changed. Don't worry. I'm gonna select the image and then I'm gonna change the appearance to something a bit darker so we'll have the ability to read our logo a bit better. It's gonna be called date night because you wanna find your date tonight. You wanna find your love. I'm just gonna use the same button, sign up and sign in here. But the difference is going to be, I want it to have those 3 images that are gonna rotate as you sign up and you land on this screen. So I'm gonna select this image and I'm just gonna make a copy of it and bring it over here. Another copy, bring it over here. So I have 3 images. Now I'm gonna select this image and I'm gonna choose a different image. Do I like that? Do I like that? Maybe this one. I like that. That feels real casual, feels nice. I also like this one here. So we have different types of couples that we can showcase here. Now I'm going to select these 3 images and I'm going to show you what my layers panel is doing. I've got rectangle 1, rectangle 2, rectangle 3. Oh, what happened? Okay, here we go. Rectangle 1, rectangle 2, rectangle 3, and I'm going to make them into a group. So now this is a group of images. Then I'm going to make a copy of this second artboard and I'm going to move the image over to the right. Then I'm going to make a third version and move that image over to the right. Yay, now we get to see all these beautiful couples. So when we land on our screen, we're able to see, oh, all these different couples are welcome. I see myself in this. It's a very inclusive dating site. So we want to think about that not just for dating sites, but for multitude of different products and platforms. Who are we trying to, how are we trying to make people feel when they come onto our sites? Do they feel like they connect? Do they feel like they're seen, they're heard, that they're thought of, right? So that's kind of something we want to be thinking about as we select our images, not just whatever is easy to grab, not just based on whatever we've seen out there thus far. We want to be very thoughtful. And again, we have a superpower gift as designers. We can make people feel heard, seen, comfortable, more themselves, and give better experiences because of it. So here I'm going to go into prototyping mode. I'm going to select the full artboard and drag over my prototyping link to this second screen. And the trigger is going to be time, and I'm going to give it about 1 second. And the transition type is going to be auto animate, so it just animates naturally. And the duration is going to be 1 minute. Let's see how that feels. It's a little fast. I'm going to do like 1.5 seconds. Like, let's see what's here. Okay. It all feels like a little too fast. Okay, that feels nicer to me. So again, play around when you're creating these types of animations. Play around with the duration and see what feels good to you. Let's see how this feels now. Oh, nice. You said Unicorn wants to align the third artboard to the top. Let's see what you're talking about here. This one? Is that it? I totally understand how you feel where you're like, I just need things aligned. Okay. So we created that. We've created our artboard with our gender identity questions. We've used and utilized a UI kit here that I've shared. And we've thought about these 3 best practices. So if this is a new concept for you that you're trying out, just think of these 3 things. And once you've thought about that, maybe you want to do some more research on how you can be more inclusive as well, and thinking outside of these 3 best practices. So this is a journey for us. We don't have to know everything about accessibility and inclusivity. We just want to take some steps and learn more and more and continuously be trying to see and experience and understand how we can be more inclusive to different people. I'm so glad for you guys to have watched this stream. I hope you learned something with me today, and I hope to see you coming up for another future session. I have one tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks everyone in the chat. Hope you have a great rest of your day. All the best. Bye.